Okay, so Pascal, thank
Yes,
you for
sir.
coming on the show. I really
Thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
First off, I want to point out that I just bought that same exact audio recorder, and we have the same exact microphones.
Yes,
So
I did notice that we have the Samsung Q2U.
hmm
Great
they're
microphone.
nice. I like them.
They're good, right?
In the Samsung family.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so first question, I ask this right off the bat to every guest that comes on.
Okay.
What does success mean to you? What's your definition of success?
Oh
And
my.
or when you're striving for success in your life, what are
Yeah.
you striving for exactly?
Wow. Okay. Okay. Damn, this is what it feels like to be on the other side. Like this for the listeners, for the viewers, um i- it's just as a context, right? This is my first time me- being on the other side of the being the interviewee rather than being an interviewer, and now I can see like how my interviewees feel, and and I vibe with them a little bit, like, cause it's as an interviewer. Sorry, I'm going a bit off track here, but as an interviewer, it's easy to think like, oh, you just answer the questions. What's the big issue? But man, being on the spotlight, I wanna do it right. Well, so yeah, just going back to the question, what does success mean for me? I think like two things come to my mind right now. First thing, um, I think success for me has to be one of the success factor has to be wealth. So and I think it's important to distinguish between being rich and being wealthy. And I've read this somewhere that being rich means having a lot of money. Being wealthy means um, you being able to not work and and at the same time being able to sustain yourself for a long time. And I think that's important. Um, and I think that's a success factor for me. Another success factor is to um, try to achieve that while having fun and while being happy in general. And I think I think that's why like I really respect content creators, because I feel like a lot of content creators tend to do that. I think the nature of it comes with that. Like um I mean, I would love to listen to your story as well, Jason, after this. But um like looking at, like, I don't know, a lot of content creators that I respect, like PewDiePie and Mr. Beast, and I mean, as much as it sounds like a 12 years old favorite YouTubers, but I don't know. I think there's so much depth to their content, and I see the common theme is that they start doing making their content which made them successful, not because they thought it will make them successful, but because they just really enjoyed doing it. um PewDiePie is a primary example of that, I think, because he started as like he's like one of the OGs, right? And listening to his interviews back then, there wasn't really like a way, there wasn't any like a YouTuber per se. Right now, YouTubers, like, kids want to be YouTuber. It's one of the most desired jobs. But yeah, no, I think uh I really like that. I think pursuing something that you really enjoy doing, um, and if that happens to translate to, um, if you being wealthy in the future, I feel like, wow, that's a success. And yeah, I think that those two things come to my mind.
That's an awesome answer. I want to circle back to your kind of inspiration and your philosophy behind your content in a little bit. So don't let me forget about that.
Yeah.
Um, your idea of wealth versus or being wealthy versus being rich, I like. Have you ever read anything by Tim Ferriss?
No, no, I haven't. I haven't.
He's a really great author. He has this book called The 4 Hour Work Week,
Ah, yeah.
and he kind of describes exactly what you're talking about with like this. He calls it the new rich kind of thing, where um, you're not like overly wealthy, you're not Elon Musk or anything, but you have enough wealth to be able to live the way that you want to and to kind of have exactly the life that you want to. If you want to go on some vacation somewhere, you can go do that. But if you want to just stay home and work, you can do that as well. So
Yeah.
that seems to tie in perfectly with what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. And I have a comment on that, Jason. But before that, let me just grab my headphones real quick.
No problem.
Yeah, see, yeah, no, for sure. I think I think people have different priorities and different philosophies, and I don't think one thing is better or one thing is more right than the others. But for me, for me, like the idea of wealth, like really attracted me. Um, and when I noticed that, I thought like it was like my own philosophy. Um, that sorry. Yeah, off topic. I just tested positive like yesterday for COVID.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Sorry to hear
you
that.
might see me coughing here and there.
No problem.
Perfect timing for the New Year's Eve. Had to cancel all the plans today, but yeah, I mean that made me, you know, to be able
Yeah,
to
that
be here. So
yeah. Well, that's awesome. And or it's awesome that you're seeing the silver lining. It's not awesome that you have COVID.
I know, right? Thank
I
you,
wish
thank
you
you,
a very speedy recovery.
thank you, sir, thank you, sir. Yeah, no, but yeah, when I really noticed that, like, okay, shit, like it's not like a common thinking, but maybe like I'm been leaning more towards this was, um, when talking to friends, like you talk about jobs and salary and things. um, maybe maybe a little less for you, Jason, because you're at uni right now and you're a bit younger, but like with the working folks, my age, we talk about that a lot. And where I'm from, where I'm living right now in New Zealand, a lot of people are moving to Australia right now because they tend to offer higher salary. Um, but and like just because a lot of people are doing it, you can't help but think like, oh, should I be doing that? But one thing that what I think is, I don't know, like I obviously salary is very important, and if you're gonna do the same job, might as well try to get paid more.
Mm.
But to me, that's less of a priority compared to some of my friends. Yeah, because I think I see that as you becoming more richer rather than more wealthier. Um, and to me, it's important, but not important enough for me to, um, compare to my friends at least. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. No, I think that Tim Tim Ferriss' book. My brother was recommending it to me actually. So yeah, I should check that out.
Yeah, it's a little bit outdated. I think they did make a newer version, kind of a more 2020s or like 2010s version, because I think he made
Mm,
it back in the early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken.
okay.
And but yeah, that's a great book for you, especially being like a content creator, kind of having to or wanting to have a bit of an outlier career.
Yeah.
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 Um,
Yeah.
and do really love your idea of wealth doesn't exactly equal money. Like in my opinion, wealth is kind of an amalgamation of a lot of different factors. And so if you're happy with what you're doing, but you make less money
Mm.
than, something that you wouldn't be as happy with, then you could say that you're wealthier even though you have less money.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's interesting like because I think that it's like on the scale, right? Like a lot of people that are into this idea of entrepreneurship and having wealth versus having more money and etc. quite often like they tend towards one side of things where, oh, you should, like, you shouldn't work for others, you should work for yourself, have your own thing going on, side hustle. There's a lot of emphasis on the hustle culture, and the grind set and so on. But I watched this other YouTuber who's like an entrepreneur, and he has been since like when he was 15 or something. And a part of and he talks a lot about like entrepreneurship um and a lot of those aspects, right? But in a part of another video, he talks about how it's also cool, like how cool it is to also work for someone else, because of course, with everything there's downsides and upsides. With entrepreneurship, one of the downsides is that if you don't work, then things stop. Like if you don't do things yourself, things stop, and that translates to you getting less income. Whereas when you work for someone else, like you have better days, less more productive days, less productive days, but that's not gonna change your income. Um, so that's like an so I think there's definitely upsides to down and downsides. Different things work for different people, and people have different preferences and different circumstances. Yeah, so I think it's important to point that out, because um, like these days I feel like there's so much emphasis, more and more emphasis on working for yourself, because I think it's like a newer idea, um, and it's cool and trendy to say that and do that. And not saying it's not, but yeah, again, it's different for different people.
And it's different according to what stage of life you're in at the moment. Maybe
For
you're
sure.
in a stage of life where you've built up a lot of, material wealth,
Yeah.
but you're not very happy, so you want to switch careers and you don't want to work for anybody. But maybe, you're in a part of your life where working for somebody is just a-okay, and you're really happy going home at, going to work at 9, going home at 5, having dinner with your kids, or maybe you're alone. I don't know, whatever makes you happy. So I
Mm.
really like that perspective from you. I agree wholeheartedly.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't know if this has been done before, Jason, but has anyone asked you what success looks like for you?
So no, no one's asked me that yet.
Oh, here we go.
I've been thinking about it a little bit. I was actually thinking, like, what if someone did point the question back on me? What would I say?
Yeah.
Um, I'm still working on that. I think success is different for everyone.
Mm.
And I think it is a pretty arbitrary concept. And it's kind of just like, some success is usually some dream that we strive for, or some way that we want to manipulate our external circumstances to uh, serve us in a better way than they are now. Um, Success to me, what I strive for when I want to be successful, is kind of just being able to be free
Mm.
and um, living life in such a way that I have kind of peace of mind.
Mm.
A big thing for me when I'm going through life is that, like, I always have this kind of like David Goggins-esque voice in my head where it's like, um, speaking of David Goggins, I want to talk to you about the little David Goggins clip that you made. We could get back to that, but I thought that was really funny. I love
Oh,
that.
that's cool. Yeah.
Um, Anyways, so yeah, I kind of walk around with this David Goggins-esque voice that's kind of like, you c- like, come on, man, like, get yourself up. What are you doing? Let's go.
Okay.
Do something today. And so being able to balance, like, do actually putting in the work and living up to the potential that I see in myself and living up to
Mm.
my own expectations, um, I feel successful when I do that, and also when I have a lot of freedom. And so long-term success for me looks like what you said, like wealth, being able to be financially free. If I want to go to New Zealand for a trip, I could go to New Zealand, and then just work from there. Like, I am really infatuated by this lifestyle of not really working for anyone, being able to do what I want to do at all times, and um, that is success for me right now. But I'm kind of actively working on that,
Yeah.
which is why
Not
I started a podcast where I wanted to learn from successful people.
uh, not to hijack your the conversation, but or the interview,
No, you're good.
um,
Yeah.
but so do you see this podcast as a step towards that? Whether
Oh
you
yeah.
monetize this podcast or learn from this podcast to implement the learning in other aspects of life for your success.
It's both. For me, it's
Mm,
definitely both. I really like the idea of having a really big podcast.
yeah.
And I think so. I'm getting my degree in geophysics right now,
Mm,
and I'm probably going to do a PhD in earth sciences, but I kind of have no idea what I want to do right now as far as that
okay.
goes. I've got like 2 or 3 years to figure that out, but like very long term, like when I envision myself in like 20, 25 years, it's like, what do I want to be doing? I don't
Mm,
really know if I want to be in a research office, kind of writing papers. Like,
mm,
I would like to be able to talk to people and learn from people. And more than any specific subject, I just like learning in general.
yeah.
And so, um, monetizing the podcast would be amazing. It would be awesome. But I think I'm more in it to just be able to talk to people and make connections and learn from people. Like if I never did this podcast, I would never have talked to you, right?
Mm,
And I might have stumbled across your podcast once or twice, but I wouldn't have had an in-depth conversation with somebody.
yeah.
And so I would say, yeah, definitely both to that question. But more
Yeah.
so, I enjoy learning from other people.
For sure, for sure. Now I think Tim Ferriss uh he said something like when you do something like you can get different values from things, and I think there was like 3 or 4 values that he categorized, and one of the values is like probably most common value we talk about, monetary value. Uh, and another one is how much you enjoyed it, and there are like a couple of others too. But like yeah, like I mean, I think it's awesome that you're starting to thinking about this already when you're still at university, because it gives you time to try things out. You know, some things you might like, some things you might not like, and some things you might be successful at, and other things that you might not be at. Um, and I think it's awesome, like because like you said, uh, right now it's not like at the monetary level that you want it to be at your podcast or YouTube, but you're still getting value out of it because
Mhm.
you're learning things and you're having fun. So no, that's awesome, Jason. Like, yeah, no, that's so cool to see. That's
Thank
so
you.
cool to see.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. I actually just talked about this on, so I'm in Florida right now. I live in Austin,
Yeah.
and so I was on the plane last night, and I was talking to just a random stranger, and we had a real deep, nice conversation. Airplane and airport conversations are so undefeated when it comes to just like life advice and things like that.
I don't know what it is about that. Like that unites people together on the
Hmm.
airport.
Yeah, it is weird to think about. But anyways, okay, so we had this really nice chat and we talked about kind of this subject exactly. And my so um I really like this thing that this guy named Alex Hormozy said,
Mm,
where I'm gonna paraphrase because I don't know exactly what he said, but
mm,
um he said something along the lines of, do the work because you'll either get the result that you want or
right.
you'll develop yourself along the way or both.
Mm,
And I can tie that into an anecdote from my life where in high school I was really into discus. I loved throwing discus for my high school team, and I wanted to go get a scholarship to some school somewhere and
Oh.
throw in college. That was like a big dream of mine. So over the quarantine period when everyone was stuck at home, I would have my dad drive me to the school where no one was around, and I would throw like every single day.
Mm.
And I really like I was laser focused on this goal, and almost everything in my life was kind of serving this goal. And um, then I tore my labrum in my shoulder.
Oh shit.
And so that was pretty devastating to me because I staked my whole life on this thing. I mean, I in my head staked my whole life on this
Yeah.
thing. In reality, it was pretty small. But um, so I did the rehab and I was good. And then I came back for my senior year and I was doing really good. And I was like throwing pretty close to scholarship range. And I could probably walk on somewhere if I wanted to.
Mm.
Um, and I was throwing really well, and then I tore my labrum again.
Yeah.
And
Same
at that
same
point,
place.
yeah, it was the same exact injury.
Oh.
Like, I didn't get surgery before, I just did physical therapy.
Yeah.
Because if you do surgery on it, it's never really the same. And, if you can get away with physical therapy, you're going to save yourself a lot of time in the long run,
Mm.
et cetera, et cetera. Um, So I kind of re-injured it, and at that point I was like, okay, even if I did start going to physical therapy and I went through the whole recovery process and it was as fast as possible, I would miss my entire senior season.
Mm.
So I ended up kind of just changing my dreams and changing what I wanted to do, and I started doing jujitsu a ton, and then focused on my grades a bit more and just like I don't regret, even though I didn't reach my goal, I worked really hard and I never reached that goal. I'm still very grateful that I did that and I don't regret anything because along the way I developed my own character
Yeah.
and I have this experience to talk about. And there's so many lessons that I learned from just all the hard work that I put in and the journey that I went through, going to rehab, coming back, getting injured again.
Mm.
And I'm able to take all of that character development with me through other things in life. So it's kind of, I guess, the moral of the story is just do the work because, like Alex Hormozy says, you'll develop yourself or you'll get your result or both. So
Yeah.
you really can't lose.
No, for sure. I vibe with that so hard. I think there's a famous quote by this Japanese samurai called Miyamoto Musashi where he said, if you know one thing, I mean, I'm paraphrasing here as well. So
Mhm.
if those like real Musashi fans come after me, then subscribe first to Jason and me first, and then come after us so that we can see your messages. But no, but I think he said if you understand something broadly, then you can apply to all things. And I think that's so true. Um, like yourself, like I've been into things like, for example, like football, um, and there was one time I was in love with maths, and now I don't really play football and I don't really use maths as much as I used to. But things I learned from that, um, I apply to other things, and
Mhm.
I feel the same part of my brain being activated, when I try to do other things or learn other things and so on. So yeah, no, I think it's cool, and yeah, like you said, like there's so much value in that.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Mm.
Musashi's the man. I love that
It's
guy.
actually yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Miyamoto
Recently
Musashi.
read his book recently.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I I love him and I really like Marcus Aurelius.
But
Those are
oh no
like
way.
the two that I really like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nah, that's cool. Yeah, like I read meditations like a couple of months ago.
Hmm.
Mm. Really interesting guy.
Yeah, it's just so amazing how many problems, like just fundamental problems to human existence that he kind
Mm.
of in his own way solved.
Mm.
and just a lot of philosophical questions that we still ask ourselves today that he answered 2000 years ago. And it's amazing how applicable it is to just life nowadays.
And also to do that when he basically had zero problems. He was an emperor. He probably could get any food he wanted as much as he wants, any clothing he wanted, comfort at max. And then to seek out how to live a good life from that. I don't know. That I think that says a lot. That yeah, about himself.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We're back.
Zoom, uh, Zoom calls failed us.
Yeah, what the heck? I swear it used to be free, right? Or am I tripping?
Yeah.
Am I tripping?
I I mean, it's like I've never hosted a meeting for more than like 15 minutes, so
Mm,
I don't know.
yeah.
I should try to get sponsored by Zoom. We can get free online
If you
meetings.
get sponsored, don't forget me, Jason.
I won't, dude. I will plug you.
Sounds good.
Don't worry.
Sounds good.
Okay, so talk to me a little bit about your journey uh up to this point. How did you become a podcaster?
Um, I have always been a YouTube baby. Like, um, so I used to be into football, right? Like, okay, I guess over there call it soccer. Over here call it football. Um, and let's not get into that rabbit hole. But yeah, nah, I was into football, and I think that's when I started watching like all these YouTube clips. I'm like, whoa, how like just seeing like people that are insanely good at football on YouTube, and since then, it's just something that I always wanted to get into. I started by watching, and then I practiced the same moves over and over again. And I'm like, oh, what if I posted this myself? And there was like for me like a crazy idea. So this we're talking like 2010 when you know I guess like just before PewDiePie got big or there was any YouTube. We're talking like Annoying Orange if you know who that is. Um, yeah, Annoying Orange and Fred. We're talking that era. Um, so yeah, well, I st- that's when I started uploading like couple of like YouTube videos of me like playing football. Mainly like there's this thing called freestyle football. I don't know if you know Jason, but
Um freestyle football. No, I never heard of it.
yeah, no. So it's basically you have like there's football, but you juggle it, and then you do tricks.
Mhm.
You do tricks like going around. Like with your feet, and then you know what I mean. Like I don't know what I'm thinking. Like what I can compare it to, but it's that kind of thing. So I
I've seen it. I've definitely seen that before. I just wasn't familiar with the name freestyle
Yeah, yeah. So
football.
it's called freestyle football, and it was perfect for me because you don't need to organize like game with friends. You can always do it by yourself, kind of thing. Um, so I started getting into that, made videos of that, like filmed myself and did editing and all that. Um, of Windows Movie Maker, which is like a big throwback. So and then so I've always been in kind of the YouTube space. But I just did that for fun. There was nothing like I want to be big of this or anything like that. It was just to share with like friends and
Mhm.
family kind of thing. And then I went to university. So I stopped making videos, but I always watched YouTube of like videos about other people. Like when I by the time I got to university, KSI was like that's when he was playing FIFA games at his parents' place. So that's when he was kind of coming up. Um, so me and
Mhm.
my friends would watch like his FIFA videos and um, like these Q&As that I don't know. I think it's like a classic YouTube that it's like an OG YouTube videos that went viral. Um, yeah, so that went on for a few years, and until recently, I thought I wanted to start like doing like a side hustle basically, like another secondary income. So I kind of like thought about uh, what I liked, and around that time, my brother, and he's a very entrepreneur person. Um, so he what he does with his wife is they basically like resell sneakers and shoes kind of things. So I thought, oh, maybe I could try something like that. I tried it. I made like $0, and it's not even exaggerating. There was like a big $0 off that, and realized, okay, like this is not something that it's like anything. You have to practice it. You have to learn how to do it. So I tried to like having my own website. Just off this. There's this guy called Knees Over Toes guy. Do you know Do you know him, Jason?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Knees Over Toes guy. So I got
He's
in.
like a big fitness guy.
He's a big fitness like personal trainer, like online
Hmm.
influencer type of person. I got into him. So I got into like fitness a lot. So I had a website to like kind of introducing to his exercises, but I kind of got bored of that. And I had this other, so I started a YouTube channel. Um, and I was like, okay, what should it be about? And I started talking about like this more related to my work, like things to do with data and things, which got like pretty, you know, kind of got popular because I think it was like niche enough so that like all the audience for that kind of came towards my channel, but basically I got bored off of it, so I quit that after like 3 or 4 months, um, and since then I was like, and around that, but kind of all along, I got into like listening to podcasts. So I was
Hmm.
listening to like all kinds of podcasts from like Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, and there was this one called which I haven't listened to for in a while, but there's this one called How to Fail by Elizabeth Day, which one of my friends recommended to me. Um, and like a lot of podcasts, and I was like, oh, I found myself really enjoy listening to podcasts, and I thought, okay, maybe I start a podcast myself, and then but that, and I sat on that for a while because I knew I wanted to do like an interview podcast, but having zero clout around here, like, I didn't know where to start and how to start, and what do I even talk about? What's my niche? And I had a lot of questions. But eventually, over time, I kind of sorted that out, and then, yeah, it's kind of what it is. What it is today.
Um, that yeah, it's a beautiful journey. I like that. So you said you sorted it out over time?
Mm, yeah. Do you want to get into that a bit more?
Yeah, yeah. So what exactly do you mean by that, sorting it out over time? Like, did you have a different vision for the podcast when at the first episode than you do now?
Um, I think the core of it stayed the same, but I don't know how much credit I can take from that because the main idea of it, I just made it as flexible as possible. So as you know, like it's called Everything Goes, and that name. Well, I wanted to name it Anything Goes, but there is a
Mhm.
already popular podcast called Anything Goes, which is one of my favorite podcasts by one of my favorite celebrities, Emma Chamberlain. So I couldn't, copy it off that, and I wasn't about to compete with that. So I named it Everything Goes. But one of the reasons was, I think one of my heavy influences was Joe Rogan, and he's got like all these guests from comedian, there's mixed martial arts people, politicians, physicists, farmers, and all. You think of a subject, he's had a guest from that. And I really liked that, and it really interested me how um someone who's not educated and or formally educated in physics um or like agriculture can have people on and have 2 3 hour conversations where, as far as I can tell, they both enjoyed and they both engaged in. um
Mm-hmm.
and I found myself listening to, basically scrolling through and then just clicking on random as name in a topic that I've previously had never cared about. Um, and that I thought was super cool and super powerful and really interesting. And sound, I mean, but baseline, it just looked really fun. It just looked really fun. Yeah. So I think I started with that. Okay, let me make it flexible, in a way such that I can have any guest on, and that's not outside my niche or something. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so and that was kind of scary. It I think upsides and downsides with everything. Upside, you can have anyone on, and it's within your niche. Downside, kind of almost the opposite. You can't have anyone on because who's the audience? Like why would anyone be on my podcast when there is no target audience? You know what I mean? So it's
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things. My target audience is everyone, and because of that, there is no one kind of thing. Um, so I started with my close circle of friends. So if you see like my first 10 episodes or whatever, those people I hang out with, like those people are the ones that I hang out with, like that I would have hung out with today if I if I didn't
Mm-hmm.
test positive kind of thing. So yeah, so um, I think by sorting it out means I started with that, but for some reason, because I guess the universe has a way of communicating with us, like uh, through different ways. But for some reason, I was able to find more guests going forward outside my close friend circles, and I'm like, okay, when is this going to end? Because I'm running out of friends here. But I've been thinking that since like episode 7, and now we're at I
Mm-hmm.
think last a couple of weeks ago I released episode 27 or something. So it somehow worked out, and I think I got super lucky as well. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but I think uh it just got, maybe I didn't sort it out, but it just got sorted it out somehow.
Yeah, a comment I'll make on your thoughts about having a target audience. Um, my philosophy with that is, why don't I just do podcast episodes with things that I myself am interested in
mm,
and that I like, and talk to people that I would talk to anyways.
yeah.
And then those will be the episodes, so that like I will in a sense create my own niche.
Mm,
Like if you look at Rogan, that's exactly what he did, right? So he's got the MMA, he's got hunting, he's got all these scientists, he's got crazy batshit conspiracy
yeah.
theories. Like he just put on what, like, he just genuinely was interested in what the other person had to say, and over time created his own kind of fan base of people that enjoy what he enjoys. Um, because he kind of didn't stray from what he genuinely liked and what he genuinely enjoyed. That's my take on podcasts in general. And then something that I myself do that really helps is just like, if I see someone that's cool on the internet,
Mm,
or if I am watching a podcast, or listening to a podcast that there's some kind of cool subject material, then I just put a little note in my head. I'm like, okay, I got to ask this person on to the show one
yeah.
day. So it's like I'm finding the stuff that's cool. And then instead of just being like, oh, yeah, that's kind of cool, and then maybe writing it down, looking at it later, I'm like, I want to talk to that person. Like, let me find a way to talk to them. And sometimes you got to treat it like you're talking to a bunch of girls or just someone of the opposite sex or whoever you're attracted to. Like, I don't know, if you go out and you're trying to pick someone up, you're gonna have a lot of rejections and you're gonna fall flat on your face a few times and you're gonna have a few times where it goes pretty well and you thought it could have gone better. And then there's gonna be that one or two or three times where it just goes great
For sure.
and you have a great impression and they want to come on your show. Um, so yeah, that's my take on all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh no, no, no. There's um yeah, there are a lot of angles that you made me think of. Uh but yeah, no, I definitely vibe with that.
Yeah, I that kind of tied in perfectly with another question I had. I was gonna ask, what do you look for in a guest? And it seems like you're looking for just like anything, like everything goes with Pascal as the name, right? Is that true?
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So I think the main thing I look for in a guest is do I want to talk to them? Because yeah, I think like you said, it's so important that the authenticity that I want to talk to them, um, and you can't really fake that. And I think Rogan has a lot of strengths, right? I think he's a good interviewer. He's articulate. You don't.
Oh, he's one of the best. He's so good. Yeah.
He's so good. And
Yeah.
you're in his city too, Jason. Like, oh, not Florida, but Austin, Texas. So you're
Yeah,
not too
yeah.
far away.
I I'm not too far. Yeah, that's one of the mountaintop goals.
Yeah, you're not too far. Like physically and metaphorically, kind of thing. You know.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, I think he's I mean, as controversial of a figure as he is, and I mean, you might be a fan of it, and you might not be a fan of his, but I think he's a really good interviewer, and there's um a lot of things that you can, like, learn of him. And to me, one of the biggest strength of his is that he's interested, and because of that, it translates to a lot of other things. Like, I think he's a good interviewer because he's interested. He's good at listening because he wants to listen. He's asking the questions that I am wondering as a listener because he's a listener and he's interested and he's engaged, right? So I
Hmm.
would say that the most important thing that I look for in a guest is, do I want to talk to them for 2 3 hours? Because
Hmm.
yeah, like you said, like, if you do, then it's not a job. It's not really an interview. It becomes so easy to formulate the questions. It becomes so easy to prepare for the interview because you're excited. You wanna do it, you know. So, nah, yeah. So that's kind of mainly what I look for. Um, other than that, on their side of things, I think I find it I find it really cool when someone's passionate about something. Um, yeah, like, I had this guest on, um, who was a he he's a tailor. Well, he works at a
Hmm.
shop, but in his spare time he does, like, tailoring. And one of my favorite conversations, because he's so passionate and obsessed he's obsessed with it, and it's so interesting talking about people that are they're obsessed with things. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I have the same mentality. I like talking to people who like you ask them one question and they'll just ramble on. I feel like both of us are kind of like that with podcasting, which is why this
Yeah.
I don't know, to me this episode feels very easy because we can both kind of rant about stuff that we are very passionate about.
Now, absolutely. When you first reached out to me and when I checked out your content, I'm like, oh, I felt the same. I felt like we're on the same page about, like, the content creation and kind of the vibe that we're trying to create from the podcast. And I have to say, you're a
Mhm.
very confident and good interviewer, Jason. So,
Thank you. I appreciate
and
that.
you haven't started this. You haven't been doing this for a long time as well, right? You had 3 episodes released so far.
I have four. This will be the fifth.
This was the fifth. Yeah, still early
Yeah,
days.
yeah.
Cause I listened to my like fifth episode. I like still. It's so, I cringe. You know,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
physically. It's just like, oh, but now you're doing awesome, Jason. Like it's so cool to see.
Thank you. Yeah, I
You're
appreciate that.
smashing it.
I'm, yeah. Thank you. I'm not gonna lie. I do get a little insecure about my skills as an interviewer sometimes.
Mm.
I think I just have to remember like it's only fourth episode. Okay, it's only the fifth episode. Just keep working at it. You're gonna be
For
fine.
sure, man.
Um,
And and
did you, I go ahead. I'm
oh
sorry.
no, sorry. I'll say this because it's just a quick like just kind of a dumb comment. But with like for me as a like a non-American, right? American accents immediately somehow as like legitimacy to the online content. I think it's because I'm like so exposed to like um you see like content creators and often they're from America, so or the US. So yeah, nah, like I think hearing the accent immediately is like, oh shit, like it's legit.
Hmm. Yeah, I get
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
get that.
That's what you're gonna say.
So, talk to yeah, talk to me a little bit about
Mm.
how you prepare for guests on your show. How much research do you
True.
do? All of that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. I would love to hear your side of the story too. But for me, what I do is so say I have someone on, then I make a Google Doc, and I have I create like 3 to 4 sections. Say like or maybe like having an example would be easier. So last time I had a Twitch streamer on, um, yeah, ex Grizzly, or Grizz. Yeah, I had Grizz on, and for that one, I made like different sections. Obvious one is like Twitch streaming, right? I want to talk to him about that, and I know he used to do YouTube as well, so I wanted to talk about YouTube, and I know he's big on like uh kind of the work life balance kind of thing. I want to talk to him about that, and he's just started making. He kind of branched off the Twitch streaming, and he started making like comedy skits, and and that's kind of another section I wanted to talk about. So I make these sections first, and then I go through those sections again, and within that, in an ideal world, what am I curious about? And I write down questions to do with that. So for example, with Twitch streaming, like how did you get into Twitch streaming? How did you come up with your name? Um, to and I write things like, to me Twitch streaming sounds tough because you have to be like on all the time with zero editing for several hours. How do you deal with that? How did you find that? And those kind of questions. Um, but I write them down knowing that they might not be answered. So I think about like what am I curious about? I just write that all down.
Mhm.
Um, and then uh yeah, I have a couple of segments, but I don't really spend too much time on them. Uh, and so by the end of that, I have like a page of Google Doc with different sections and questions within each of those sections. And then yeah, that's basically it from my side.
Yeah, that's pretty similar to what I do.
Mm.
I'm curious what you mean by might not be answered. Like you might not get to those questions
Mm.
in the time frame that you have.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's always kind of a tug of war between having some sort of structure where you ask questions, they answer, versus it being like a conversation that you might just catch up with a friend over like a coffee, and it's like a conversation you have. And I kind of see it as that right now. And because if you read like a magazine interview, like if when you read it, it's very like questions. Interviewer asks this, and block of text, like paragraph of answers, right? And that's like a one extreme example. another side of things is like just pure conversations you have with friends. You know, camera and the microphone is not record is not rolling, and I see my interview as sitting somewhere in between, and maybe bit more towards the like coffee ketchup side. So I kind of sacrifice not asking all the questions that I'm curious about to enable for the conversation to flow. So if I'm like talking about them about like Twitch streaming, and then we get sidetracked to talking about music or something that I didn't plan, um, one thing I could do is then it gives me option, right? Like one thing is okay, I want to bring it back to Twitch streaming, or we can kind of get sidetracked to music, and we just keep talking about that. And for me, I usually make the decision to okay, that's Twitch streaming done. Um, let's just move on to the next topic, which now happens to be music, and that's fine. And we get and after that we get on to another topic. So yeah, that's how I kind of think of it.
Yeah. I'll share with you what I do during an interview to help me with kind of like you said, the balance between having a nice flowing
Mm,
conversation, but then also um, you still want to, like, if you're interviewing someone who's pretty unique,
yes.
you don't want to talk to them about if they're a Twitch streamer and they don't do anything with music. They just kind of enjoy listening every once in a
Mm,
while. You want to talk to them mostly, probably mostly about Twitch, and then maybe a little bit about music. So you still want to steer the conversation where you want it to go,
yeah.
right? Um, so as I interview people, I always write down things that intrigue me as they're talking because I like to let the guest talk and just get everything that you want to get out, right? And then um, and then I'll put like I'll write things down and I'll like bold it out or underline it or put a star on it if I want to go back to it later. And then like I said, like I'll tell you about things that I want to talk about and just say, "Okay, we're going to go back to this later."
Mm,
Like with the content philosophy, with the David Goggins thing, like because I still want to talk about that
yeah.
at some point, but yeah, I don't want to interrupt the flow of conversation that we have right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's and prior to interview, do you prepare like set questions?
I do, yeah.
Mm.
I always try to prepare. I always end up preparing a little after the first. So the first episode of the podcast, I made way too many questions, and I kind of did that on
Yeah,
purpose,
yeah.
just like because I didn't
You don't
really know what I
know.
was doing.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You never know.
So you get a yeah yeah you get a sense for like just like how many questions can I fit into 2 hours?
Mm,
And it also depends on because 2 hours is around the time frame that I've been doing with these episodes, maybe a little over, a little under. And so it's like, how many questions can I fit in 2 hours? And you get a sense for that after a couple
yeah.
episodes. Um, but something I should definitely do better on is making a little more questions so I don't run out. Um, but yes, yeah, okay. Going off on kind of a tangent. Yes, I prepare questions beforehand,
Yeah.
and it's a little less structured than yours. Um, Usually, I will like kind of be thinking throughout the day about something, and then I'll like write it down in this
Ah.
journal that I have. Um, or what I did with you is like I already kind of knew what I wanted to ask you
Mm,
because we seem like pretty similar people, and we both are podcasters, and so it's pretty easy to be able to ask you stuff. And so like I was actually waiting in line to get on my flight, and I was like just writing down a bunch of questions.
mm.
And then today, like I was writing down a few questions that wanted to kind of ask you about. So it's definitely not as because I don't want to like overly put too many questions or do too much research
Yeah.
into where like I already know the answers to
Yeah.
the questions I'm gonna ask, right? Because then you lose that
I
authenticity that
know,
you were
right?
talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, right?
So yeah, that's my process there.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's interesting, and I think it's really cool because each podcast, even our podcast, where um it's a conversational, long form conversational podcast with like wider variety of guests than other podcasts. Um, but I can see even in our podcast, like the philosophy that we have for our podcast is different because, like you said about like Twitch streamer, maybe you want to talk to them about like 90% Twitch streaming and like maybe like 5% music and 5% other things. And to me like uh when I listen to Joe Rogan, one of the parts that I really like intrigue me is when he has like I don't know, physicist on, and it's 50% about like something other than physics. And yeah, like I remember like really enjoying that because where else would you get that other than Joe Rogan? It's interesting hearing about like I don't know, I just can't find an example here, but imagine like you have like Joe Rogan on or someone famous on that's known for one thing, but it turns out they're really into like snorkeling or they're obsessed over collecting teapots or something like that, and I find that like that like a little something that makes them human, like it's so easy to think like, oh, Joe Rogan the podcaster, but at the end of the day, everyone's like human. They have like like small different things that they like and different preferences they have.
Mhm.
So, um, but yeah, nah, I think having different like seeing different podcast philosophies like is super interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it is really cool. That's almost like I like Joe Rogan is definitely an idol of mine. I don't agree with everything he says, but I definitely respect him a ton as an interviewer and just as an interviewer and with all the other things he does, and I like how authentic he is and all
Mm.
those things. Um, but that aspect that you explain about Joe Rogan is almost kind of a gripe of mine about the
Is
show,
it?
which is so funny.
Yeah.
And I think it's just up to it's personal preference. And I think like there's definitely a place for humanizing these really really smart people
Mm.
or these really famous people. And I I think that's an amazing thing to do with a podcast. I'm not trying to knock on you or Rogan or
Yeah.
anybody, but one of my gripes, and I talked to a friend about this the other day, was he's got like such successful people on
Mm.
that literally like 15 minutes of their time is worth, thousands of
Yes.
dollars. And so you could extract like so much really, really good, useful information from these people
Yeah.
who have like amazing experiences or they're super, super smart. And he just talks to them like he's their buddy for
Yes. Yeah.
an
Yeah.
hour and a
Yeah.
half. And then he gets to like maybe like 45 minutes of stuff that's like, really, really good. And then the rest of the pod. And it kind of depends on episode to episode because sometimes they're super informative and they're
Mm.
great. And other times, it's just kind of comedy Joe Rogan and he's laughing with them
Yeah.
and they're having a drink and they're smoking a blunt or something. Um, so that's kind of like with my podcast, I like to think about um, I want to, yes, I want to have a free flowing
Mm.
conversation. And yes, like I enjoy going off on tangents sometimes,
Yeah.
but I also want to bring that person on to be able to talk about, like what are the insights that they have, what like are their philosophies, how did they get to where they are, you know um, why are they doing what they're doing, what are the specific things that like maybe make them successful in order to um, kind of extract some value from the conversation. So I guess my philosophy right now is a bit less entertainment and a bit more
Mm.
of the kind of like more business, more self-help, self-improvement um, kind of aspect. But I honestly have been thinking about that a bit and like where do I want to take the show because I
Mm.
don't want to completely make it, I don't want to have a stick up my butt the entire runtime of the show,
Yeah.
like I want to be able to joke around a little bit and stuff. So it's definitely a balance for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think it's one of those things that like basically only time will tell. You know, it's so hard to know where you exactly stand as like accounting for your personal preference, your character, your interview skills, like the guests and the what your podcast want to be. Like there's so many things to balance to just decide on. Okay, I'm gonna stand here and I'm gonna do that. But I think only time will tell as we go.
Yeah. That's the beauty of the medium. It's like if you if I'm in a phase of my life where I'm really really obsessed with um electrical engineering,
Yeah.
then I could just have a bunch of electrical
Oh,
engineers on
absolutely.
for I don't know, 20 episodes straight. And then when I get bored of that, I could just have some buddies on and we could just like I don't know, like just chill and
Yeah.
talk about like stupid
Just
stuff
kick back. Yeah.
and then if I want to yeah, and I think right now I'm just in a phase of my life where I'm just very uh just kind of focused on getting value out of things and
Yeah.
building myself up as a person. So yeah, you're completely right. It
Yeah.
will probably change as and your show will probably change as you
Oh,
change as a person
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
But I like that you have an idea. Um, it's not like you're kind of. I mean, going with the flow is good too. But what I really like is someone wants to do something and it's intentional and there's an
hmm
intention in your content, and I really like that.
Yeah, I really like this quote. Bruce Lee always says be like water, right?
Mm,
So you know, you there's a balance to be had between I think going with the flow and also, you know, being intentional with what you want.
yeah.
Like there's always a set of, you know, core values or things that you like absolutely want to do. And then everything else, you know, just kind of be relaxed with it, you know.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the David Goggins clip a
Oh,
little
here
bit.
we
Did
go.
you expect that? Did you expect that to go as viral as it did?
So,
Because I it had a lot of YouTube views.
man, did you find my podcast through that, like my
Um,
channel?
I I might have. I can't remember if I found it through just YouTube recommendations because I was looking at a lot of podcasts and I
Ah,
think YouTube knew that I was starting a podcast
right.
at that time, so it was recommending just like every startup podcast ever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I like the logo.
Oh,
And then
cool.
I saw that clip and I was like, holy shit, like this is
Uh,
hilarious. Like I like
oh,
this.
thank you, thank you. Well, how many views did it have when you discovered that?
I'm gonna pull it up right now. I think it had a couple million or a couple hundred thousand.
Oh
Like
yeah, a couple hundred
it
thousand.
had
Okay, okay. Now I think it's got like 720K now or something.
yeah, maybe I'm overestimating. I really can't remember. 770K.
770K. But I mean, to me, it feels like 770 million. You know what I mean? Like, but those
Mhm.
those two numbers might as well be the same. But yeah,
Mhm.
like it was crazy. Like I don't know. Like I made it because I didn't think it would go viral. I just because I just had like no experience anything going viral. For me, viral is like, oh shit, it's like three digits. It's got more than 100
Mhm.
views. Like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, like anyone other than my mom watched it. Like, get in there. That's always been like my expectation for my content. Uh, but one
Yeah.
one thing that was different about this video was that after I made it, uh, not many. We're talking like less than 10 people here. Just random, like friends of friends, or just completely random people liked it, like on Instagram or YouTube. And there was this one person on YouTube. When I posted on YouTube, there was one person who commented on it saying like, "Oh, this will have like a million views one day," um, like, and he said this is how YouTube works. You just wait for it; it's gonna blow up. And I just commented saying, "Oh, like thank you for your comment. Like I'm glad you enjoyed it." Um, and then, but mind you, I posted this like I think in like June or July this year. So it's been like several months. And honestly, like
Mhm.
until maybe like October or November this year, it had like maybe 200, 400, 200 to 400 views or something like that. And I'm like, okay, like cool, like I only made that video because I had a dry patch in my podcast where I couldn't get guests. I was like, I ran out of
Mhm.
friends. I couldn't, I didn't know who to reach out to. So I'm like, okay, if I could
Mhm.
have any guest on in the world, who would it be? And around that time of my life was David Goggins. So I'm like, okay, let me interview David Goggins. So what I was going to do initially was stitch up Joe Rogan's like podcast so that, because you know how like Rogan's interview like only has a camera on only one person at a time.
Mhm.
So I could easily do that,
Yeah.
and I was gonna do it a bit serious, like asking him about his mentality and him answering. And I'm like, oh, if you my inspiration came from To Pimp a Butterfly. Are you a Kendrick fan, Jason?
I'm very familiar with To Pimp a
You know
Butterfly.
how
It's a great album.
it's a great album. I love that album, and and how he has interview with Tupac.
Hmm.
And that was my inspiration. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have like a serious interview like this, asking him about like his mentality, him answering, and so on. Um, and then and then I listened to his interviews, and I'm like, okay, like I could do this, I could do that, and I was when I was searching up David Goggins interview on YouTube, I found this other one that he did, and then I'm like, oh, I could use this too. Maybe it would be a bit more realistic because Joe Rogan setup, everyone knows, everyone's seen it on YouTube thumbnail. So it's so common. I found this other one. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll use this instead. Um, and then I started stitching it up, and I'm like, you know what? I think it would be kind of funny, like, since I'm like small creator anyway, it would be a bit more believable if I asked him on my show and he just says like no. And then I started stitching it up, and then I just happened to find those clips of him saying those things. And I'm like this is low key like perfect on like what I'm trying to say. Um, and then I'm like, okay, like I've never acted before. Like let's see how it goes. It'll be funny as. So I acted a little bit. Um, and then I posted it. Yeah, for months I didn't hear anything, and then but I hear like here and there people saying, there was like some sweet as comments there, Jason. Like, like someone
Hmm.
said, like below 1,000 views, someone said, "Bro, like, how is this so funny? How does this not have like a million views?" And someone else commented, "Oh, we're the few lucky ones where we get to see this before it gets blown up." And I was like, "How sweet is that?" So I was like thanking everyone and so on. And then yeah, one day, I was away as well. I was just like away for work, and then I was checking my email. And you know how they YouTube emails you when someone comments on your videos and stuff. And I'm getting like like 5 emails, 5 comments. I'm like, whoa, I'm like I'm like famous. Like I'm getting like 20 views per hour. And then I go to a meeting, and I get out, and I'm like seeing 20 emails. I'm getting like 100 views per hour. And then they just kept blowing it up. They just kept going and going, and I don't know, it got to a level like 10, 10,000. So that's 5 digits views per hour. I'm like, okay, I don't know what's
Hmm.
happening. I can't answer every single comments anymore. But yeah, it was such a funny experience. It just came out of nowhere.
Hmm. It's such a perfect clip because it's so believable, and and you're kind of left wondering like, did that really happen?
Yeah.
Like, is that real? And it's like something that Goggins would like he would
He
100%
would
do
do
that
something
too.
like that.
Yeah.
And I think like you said, a lot of people appreciate it. Sounded like one of the things was that people didn't know if it was real or not. And I think most people probably like 99% thought it was fake, but that 1% of people like 1% of them thought, oh, maybe like this could be real. And I think I saw a lot of comments saying like, oh, like you had me in the first half, but this is hilarious, and like I don't know if this is real or not. And there are people like commenting on my video saying like, bro, you just hung up on like David Goggins. Like, and I, as far as I could tell, they're not being sarcastic. They're being serious about that. And there are people commenting below that saying this is fake and stuff. Um, so I think I kind of hit the sweet spot, in the in the algorithm world.
Mhm. How has your podcast changed at all since that clip went viral? Have you had more listeners or?
Yeah, like a little bit, not too much. Uh, yeah, it's maybe like a little bit, but I would say overall not really. Overall not really.
Hmm.
There were a couple of people's there were some views that went on to the latest episode at the time when it went viral. So that episode with Jess um got way more views than other episodes of mine. But
Hmm.
I would say that's more of a timing thing rather than the traffic going to my podcast kind of thing. Um, yeah, I think it is getting more views now purely just because of the fact that I have more subscribers. Um,
Hmm.
but I think over time, I would say no.
Gotcha.
Mm.
Um, so what are your goals as a podcast host? Where do you see the show 5 years from now?
5 years from now, where do you see the show? I mean, I'm available on most platforms. YouTube. Sorry, that's a lame joke, but yeah, nah. I think in terms of goals, maybe easier for me to talk about. I want to be able to have, um, if I like a guest, like being reasonable. We're not talking like David Goggins or Joe Rogan here, but if I like a guest, I have a high chance of having them on my podcast. That's the goal at the moment. So yeah, say
Mhm.
like these days I've been into fashion recently, and I've been like reading books about fashion and so on, and um, that bespoke tailor was one of the persons that I had on because like I reached out and he responded that he was keen as well. But for example, there are other uh, designers from New Zealand that I would like to have on, but um, I like I don't know them, and I don't really have any platforms to know them currently, and it's harder for me to have them on right now. So I would love to reach a point where um, I'm like, okay, like at least within like my local area, if I like like if I'm interested in talking to a person, I can ask them, and they might at least respond. Yeah. So that's kind of my goal. Um, and in terms of like the more other side of things, um, yeah, it's like I don't really expect or I aim for having like a monetary, like at least consistent monetary income of it or anything like that. But I mean, I would love it. So if there are any sponsors out there that would that would be cute, I'm open to it. I'm open to it. But like a YouTube ad revenue, couple of $100 per month, and we're talking New Zealand dollars here, Jason. I think it's about
Mhm.
half of I think it's roughly about half of US dollars. So US dollars,
Okay.
100 US dollars per month. I wouldn't complain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. I like, I like podcasting and I like talking to people. I'm not going to complain if I get paid for it.
Yeah, it is for doing something we like, right? Yeah.
Something I thought of as you were talking was with the Goggins clip.
Yeah.
That might be a good idea for you, like to make. like almost like mock podcast, like silly like mock podcast clips. There's like a YouTuber that does this, but he
Yes.
doesn't like put himself in the videos. He just kind of
Ah.
stitches it together.
Yeah, I know who.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. Is it like in the black background, two people sitting in the table kind of thing? Is it the one you're talking about?
well, no, he usually does the Rogan.
Ah,
Um,
okay. Rog
he'll like take clips from Rogan.
right.
Like he had this really funny video where he had Goggins,
Yeah.
and um he clipped it together so that it looked like David Goggins was talking to this pretty out of shape comedian. His name's Stavros something.
Oh,
I
yeah.
forget how you pronounce his last name, but he basically just like going off on him, and it's fake, but it's so believable
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
hilarious. So that might be a good idea for you. Like, put yourself in there and then like make some funny clips every now and then.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll go viral.
Yeah, could be, could be. Yeah, no, I think like you say it's hard finding something that I enjoy doing and that resonates with the wider public. And because
Yeah.
to me, if I could choose, I wish one of my interviews went viral rather than that Goggins clip because that Goggins clip was really fun, but what I really like doing is the interviews. So yeah, it's tough, but yeah, it's always been like this for some reason, Jason. I think it's like the universe really has a way that we can't really measure because even in my last YouTube channel where I had like 1,000 subscribers, but a lot of traffic was because of something that I didn't really enjoy doing, and I
Mm.
made other videos that I liked doing, and I'm like, oh, please let this go viral, let this go viral, and they never did, and it was always the ones that I didn't really enjoy making. Um, yeah, so yeah, there's something funny about that, but yeah, I mean, but yeah, I'm always like open to experiment and have fun with it. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Back from our
We're
break.
back.
Due to some technical difficulties and some water that had to be got.
Yes.
Um. Yeah. Thank you for the compliment on the engagement. Um. Something that I forgot to mention while you were gassing me up as much as you
Mm.
were was that I honestly owe a ton of the initial success of this podcast to just how many awesome friends that I have and a bunch of people from high school that um, just I guess just really fuck with the content
Heck
and
yeah.
they like it and um, they like it and do it a service for the algorithm. So I appreciate all of you that are liking my posts and keep it up.
Give it up.
And also just like people people in my people like my very close friends have been very nice and they always post it on their stories
Aw,
and um like
so
the
nice.
logo for the podcast uh great old friend of mine made the logo for the podcast
Oh, okay.
and um I've just had a lot of help and I'm really grateful for everyone who's helped me and all the guests that you don't have to come on to starting
Mm,
a podcast like but they go on anyways. So that's all been really nice and I owe a lot of the success to that.
yeah.
So, here's a question for you.
Here we go.
Is podcasting your end goal or are there other areas of life or content creation that you want to explore down the road?
I think podcasting will always be there because it's just such a for what we want to do, Jason. It's such a I can't really see any other platform that's better for what we want to do and what we want to achieve. Um I would I definitely want to branch out and try different things too. Um one of the things that come to my mind right now is I've been watching more Casey Neistat recently. Um have you Have you followed him much at all?
I know who he is. I'm
Mm,
familiar with who he is, and I know he's a vlogger and things like that,
yeah.
but I haven't watched too much of his videos.
So he's a yeah, like you say, he's a vlogger. That's main. I guess that's the main thing he does on YouTube. But uh, in the core, he's like he's a film editor, like director, you know, camera person and an editor. Um, and he's known as the person who really paved the path for the current what the current YouTube vlogging is today. So he's like one of the OG YouTube vloggers that really set what it should look like and what works for YouTube. Um, yeah, and I think his vlogging is really like a storytelling. He's got a message he wants to send, and he does that through, and he happens to do that through filming and editing. I think that's I really appreciate that as like a creative process. Yeah, I
Hmm.
would love to try something like that. Uh, yeah, I think those two things right now come to mind. And right now, my current job as a data scientist, I do a lot of coding, which I love.
Hmm.
I love like coding things. So they will always be part of me as well. So yeah, that and yeah, for sure, for sure. Those things and other things they'll always be there, like exercise and things. But um, yeah, that's I feel like it's almost like given.
Hmm.
Mm,
If you could tell, I started smiling when you said that your job is a data scientist.
mm,
Um, I really like data science.
yeah.
Um, but anyways, kind of going back to the previous question, I'll go back to the data science in a
Yes.
second. Um, so you have those like lightning interviews, like really fast interviews. Am I correct? I saw that on your page, right?
Oh, do you mean like other than like David Goggins ones?
Well, because I think you were in public and you were asking people questions in public, and it was like
Oh,
a
yeah.
quick.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, did like a IRL interviews, I guess. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's like a one time thing.
Do you plan on doing that anymore, or was that just one time thing?
Not really. I think I kind of see that as kind of like a David Goggins content kind of thing. Like I don't really see
Hmm.
myself doing that regularly. Uh, but if I want to do it again, I will do it again. But I haven't really planned
Hmm.
it out.
Gotcha.
That was really fun though.
And yeah, yeah, it looked nice.
Oh,
I
thank you,
liked it.
thank you.
Um, so what are the skills that you're working on right now to be a better podcaster? If someone
Mm,
wanted to start a podcast and you were able to give them some advice on skills to work on, what would you tell
my gosh. I would say really okay. If I were to give an advice, I would say be interested. Like yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me. Like you have to be interested. Other than that, advice wise, I don't know. I almost want to just say that, just to almost like an
them?
emphasis on how important that is. And I feel like everything else will almost just fall into pieces, fall into places as they do it. Personally, what I'm working on right now, maybe my storytelling. I noticed that sometimes I'm trying to explain something or tell my side of story, but it's not very linear, which makes it easier for the listeners to understand. But it's always like, I talk about one thing and then I have to jump back because I forgot to talk about this other thing, and then or sometimes I'm bringing this other context that's not important to the message that I'm trying to come across. there are a lot of ums and a lot of ahs, and uh, I can't. I'm not articulate enough. Yeah, I notice a lot of those things. So those things I'm constantly kind of working on. Yeah, that would be
Hmm.
the main thing right now.
Yeah, that's my what I'm trying to improve on as well.
Mm,
Is like getting rid of the everyone has those like little you know,
yeah.
mm, all those things. Have you noticed, like, I've noticed with myself that I say, you know, after like I'll say a sentence, so I'll say a question. So I'll be like, um, what drives you to be successful? Like that little, at the end. And
Yeah.
I always say, I'll say, you know, what drives you to be successful? You know,
Right, right, right.
and it's like instead of like pausing, I just say, and I was wondering if you have any like of your own kind of unique things that you noticed about the way that you talk.
Oh man, like especially in the early episodes, so many pauses, so many ums. I think was a big thing for me, and it it's a common thing, I guess. But yeah, I I I I still remember like cringing. Like I'm like, man, this is how I sound to other people when I talk to them. Cause and one of the things that I also noticed was that I talk a bit slower than others. That's one thing I've also
Hmm.
noticed, and I'm still yet to decide if it's well talking like a kind of a coding language here. I don't know if it's a feature or if it's a bug. I don't know if it's something that I should fix or if it's just my style. But um yeah, I feel like there are more pauses and bit more ums than I would like at the moment.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I've noticed. Like listening to Joe Rogan, for example, like listening to him explain. Um, do you, there's this theory that he likes called Younger Dryas impact theory. It's like a historical event theory, like whether it happened or not, which
Hmm.
might change some of the understanding of our like history about like civilizations. But he when he explains that, it's it's very easy to listen to because there's like no arms, like a minimal amount of arms, and he makes it. He explains it in a way such that what comes first and what comes after makes sense. Why it's there. So yeah, so I think that's cool. So that's something that I'm working on. And in terms of like pausing a lot and taking my time with what I'm trying to say, I'm in two minds because Joe Rogan he doesn't have that much of that, but you listen to Emma Chamberlain, who's another podcaster or YouTuber or whatever, um, and in she tends to be a bit like that. Like she will say something and then pause for a bit, and then even if it's like a mid sentence, like she will do that. So that's. But having said that, she has a like more of a solo podcast where it's like a more of a monologue rather than interviews. So it's a little bit different, but yes, that's something that I'm working on, but yeah, haven't decided if it's something that needs to be fixed.
Yeah. For me, there's like little phrases that I try to replace with the ums and the ahs and the things that I ask.
Mm,
Like when I say, talk to me about this, or can you tell me more about this? That's a very deliberate thing
true.
that I got from this guy named Chris Williamson.
Ah, yeah.
He's got this Modern Wisdom. Have you heard of that?
Mm,
Yeah, he's a great interviewer, and that's like a lot of his lead, and I think um, it's a great lead into a question because you're like kind of leaving it open ended for their interpretation, but also like you're still asking the question, and it's very concise. It's just like, tell me more about this, you know?
yeah, yeah, definitely. That just reminded me one of the big things that I kind of am working on fixing or have got better at is saying like kind of interrupt, not interrupting, but say like my guest is like explaining something or talking about something, and outside podcasting as trying to be like an active listener, I'll add a lot of like yeah like true true. You know what I mean? Like I'll add a lot of those.
Mhm.
But I think as a when you listen to that on the podcast, that's annoying. I mean, when I do it, it's annoying. I find that annoying. I'm like, I want to listen to them, not my own
Mhm.
voice. So I cut that out a lot.
Mm. Do you like, how do you cut that out of video?
Oh no,
Do
so,
you cut it out of video?
no, so I cut that out. Is it? I don't do it.
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah,
So I was
yeah,
about to say, like, it's gonna
yeah.
be, yeah. Yeah, I have that same feeling. I can get away with it whenever you're doing audio only because you can cut out
True.
stuff and you can like doctor it pretty efficiently.
Mm.
But in video, what is it? I one of my old American football coaches, he used to say, "Eye in the sky don't lie," and he would always talk about the like film because they would have this drone that
Mm.
would like have a camera down on us while we played, and we would look at the film after we were done playing, and they would always kind of talk on us for our mistakes and stuff. But "Eye in the sky don't lie"
Yeah,
is what they used to say, and so it's just harder to get away with stuff that's on film.
for sure.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Especially with the time difference and all the chaos there. I want to give you the end of the show to, or I want to give you a platform at the end of the show to be able to um, tell the people what you got going on,
Mm.
what are your future plans, where can people find you, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, for sure. So is this my time?
Yeah, this is your time.
Yeah, no, for sure. Nah, hello, Jason's fans and friends and family. Yeah, nah. So I do podcasting. If you enjoy long form conversation like Jason, has been doing for his podcast, then surely you will enjoy my podcast too. So I go by Everything Goes with Pascal, and I'm on most platforms like YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast, and so on, as well as Instagram. So yeah, give it a follow if that sounds good to you. And yeah, I have. I think I trying to have a wide. I have a pretty wide variety of interests. So trying to have um guests who could talk about that. So far, I think I have had a lot of uh people that were doing the research at uni. We talked about a bit of mushroom research a little bit. These days I've been have had a couple of Twitch streamers on talking about gaming and how they got into streaming and how they are managing creating content versus outside that like work life balance too. So if that sounds interesting to you, yeah, give it a listen and feel free to slide in my DMs too. I'm pretty friendly. It would be awesome to talk to people that's living outside New Zealand. That would be really cool. But yeah, no, that's about it for me. And thank you, Jason, for having me on. It's my first time being on a podcast as a guest, so it's been super exciting. And yeah, like I said before, now you're crushing the game, so I'm looking forward to where you're going next too. And for the listeners and to you, Jason, it's end of 2023 in New Zealand, 31st of December. So happy New Year to everyone.
Oh, it's Happy New Year right now?
No, it's no,
Oh,
we've
okay,
got
okay.
11 hours here, but you know, it's
Oh, okay.
31st of
Yeah, I forget it's
December.
daytime over there.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still the 30th here. It's 7 p.m. here.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I still got about a day and a half to go.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah,
nice.
yeah, awesome. Yeah, thank you. I look forward to seeing what you do next, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.